So we're up to page Shin Tzadik Vov, As Yud Beis. Yep.
Very far from the M8.
Which one are we on?
Shin Tzadik Vov is the page.
Shin Tzadik Vov.
Yeah, As Yud Beis. You know, I think I mentioned it briefly last week, but Daf Yomi, where you just had, but the Gemara says that the Rabbi Shalom forgives someone who forgives.
Right.
So I always explain this to people that, and you know, Chassid have a meaning to say Yehiratzain. Chabad also has that meaning to say Krishma Lamita, Ani Moichel, Kol Shehichnis, Hiknoisi, right? And so what happened, you know, first of all, Rashi explains in Masechtas Yuma that what the Gemara meant to say, the Bonishab forgives who forgives if you were asked for forgiveness. That's what it means. You know what I mean? It's not just plain. It's a nice thing if you're moichel plain. That's a great thing. But you know, obligation. That's for the fact. But also, what happens, you know, a guy really hurt someone. I once gave this moshe about Lesikam. A guy burns someone's house down and beats him up, breaks his bones. And it takes 6 months to get better. And he says to him, can you please be moichel me? That's an insult. You know, if you step on someone's toe by mistake, you say, please forgive me. Okay, that's appropriate. You really beat a guy up, and it's like saying a guy beat someone up, broke his bones, and he stole the pen from him. Comes back, he says, please be moichel, I took away your pen. That's an insult. You know what I mean? Like, that's not the so, but, you know, a person has to, you know, and also what happens to people, I watched this. You know, the guy's a Rosh. I asked him Mechila, he doesn't want to be Moichel. He beats him up, he doesn't ask the right way Mechila, then he comes to me and says, you know, this guy, I went to him and I asked Mechila, he doesn't want to be Moichel. That's why I always say you need 3 people, because there are 3 people were there. Did you ask really Mechila? You know, it's not just a lip service. It's really, you have to ask real forgiveness. You know, and that's the person has a mitzvah to be Moichel. That's
the point is that if you really did something wrong to somebody else, so just asking the chil is not enough. You have to actually.
Well, it depends. You know, imagine
what you did.
Right, take responsibility. L'moshel, you step in someone's toe. I'm sorry is good enough. But you hurt someone, you broke his bone, you went over his leg, and you saw him went to someone's leg, and he broke his bone. I'm sorry. That's like an insult. It's not there. I'm sorry.
Is the person really is sorry?
Yeah, well, you could be sorry for stepping someone's toe, you know. But if you broke someone's bone, you don't say just, I'm sorry. You really show you feel terrible about it. It's a whole different, otherwise it's an insult, you understand? There's sometimes you ask Mechila, I tried to make shalom between people. And I saw his attitude was, you know, like he didn't want to take responsibility. Or, in other cases, when a guy was goydem hezek for a person, and Dina Shemaim has to pay. I told someone, he has a right not to be moichel you till he caused them a lot of damage. You know, you maybe cannot take him to the Torah, but go to a person who's chashim mishpat, and if you're chayiv din shemaim, you have to pay. Not always can you. We spoke about this more than once. Not always can you take money dina udam. There's such a thing as dina shemaim. If a person was passive, or you know, didn't. Certain case, if a person could have been an edech, remember we spoke about this? A person with one witness, or a person could have helped someone, or knew this guy is going to business with someone. You knew, this is very frightening. You knew this guy into business when you know this guy is trouble. You didn't tell him anything. Dina Shemayim, if he goes broke, you have to pay him. People don't realize that. Understood what I just said? Reuven wants to go into business with Shimon, and I happen to know that this Reuven is a dishonest person. He'll take advantage and he's not going to pay. He's going to, and I don't tell this to Shimon. I am a terrible sin, and Dina Shemayim, I have to pay him. It's very, very frightening. But sometimes it's, and also it's another thing, you're allowed to be forgiving, but a person is allowed to be hurt too. You know what I mean? There are people like, for one person it's an insult, the other person, who cares? Especially if you have a lot of daughters. Certain girls are very sensitive, certain are not so sensitive. Can't make a rule from one daughter. This was an insult. I couldn't care less. But if the person is hurt, and also I'm not talking about, I always tell people, super sensitive people. There are people like, if they don't get shishi, I don't know about the Chabad, but in certain places, they ain't got the shishi, they ain't get, that doesn't mean you insulted them. It doesn't, you understand? That's not an insult. He has incredible expectations, and by him, this is like he didn't get it. Okay. People don't realize Benudam Chaveiro is a very chomedige Zach. It's a very, very, very chomer. Because you can't ask forgiveness. Baruch doesn't forgive if a person hurts someone. So let's learn Yid Beis. Avak Lushan Hara. It's called the dust of Lushan Hara. Why? You're not saying this guy's a bad guy. You're just saying, I don't want to tell you what I know about him. Better you don't ask. That's extremely common. What? Yes. He says, who is going to tell the person like what he is now? Like, he had a past. You know what I mean? You don't want to know his past. Like that's what we say in America today. He says, I don't understand. Guy says, do you know him? I don't speak Lushan Hara. You ever notice people do this? Do you know this guy? I don't speak gossip. He just spoke Avek Lushan Hara. He's a frumma. Doesn't want to speak Lushan Hara. He's really religious. But the fact that he says you don't want to speak Lashon Hara, one of my children, they shot in the shidduch. I called up a neighbor, and I wanted to find out something. And I asked the neighbor, do they have Shalom Bayis? Okay. You know? Now I said to him, now I know. He gave me the answer. He says, so I said, why was shocked? He says, no one knows. I'm a neighbor, I know. He said, but when a person, what?
What are you supposed to do? Somebody asked you.
But it depends. It depends. If it's shidduch, you're allowed to say.
No, I know, but somebody asked you a question. Do you know about this guy?
And it's asking just because gossip, not for business, just, socially. We're sitting at a table, and, people don't have, the rule is that we don't want to sit and not talk, and we speak about people. So, I know. You know anything? Yeah, nothing. I know nothing. Comes to shul. People try to get out information out of me. I know. It's just, see, the rule is if a guy calls you for a shidduch, you always ought to say. Not always do you have to say, but if you said it's not Lashon Hara. A person asked me if there's mental health in the family. I told this to people, you're allowed to say, doesn't mean he's a great boy. But some people, parents, European especially, want to know that everyone is well. You're allowed to, there's no Lashon Hara. If you know inside, if you're allowed to say. It runs a family, certain things you're allowed to say. But if, sin has not negay whatsoever, he has a brother that's not religious, well, that doesn't make a difference. That shidduch has nothing to do with it. Something has really nothing you shouldn't have said. Well, you have a right. Right. But you have a right to decide not to say. But I'm not mechuyev to say. I believe it has nothing to do. You could be makbid, but I don't have to say. I have nothing. There's no reason for me to say. If I know an illness in the family, you really want to know. It makes sense for me why you need to know. You're right. It's not bad if he finds out another way, but I'm not obligated to say. I mean, he's right. But then he's saying he's right. He doesn't want to have a mechutin that his brother is a galach. He's a priest.
If you don't have to say illness, why aren't you mechuyev within a shamayim?
The what?
Why would you not be mechuyev within a shamayim?
Why are you mechuyev to say it in the Shema?
When it comes to business, if I know that the Uber is doing business with Shemin,
Sure, there's nothing.
I don't say anything. There's a loss to the Uber.
Yeah, but there's no illness. There's nothing wrong if someone found he is well. I'm not mechuyev to tell him. It's that I do believe you should say if the guy asks, but you don't have to say he is well. This person.
As well, if he himself is
Oh yeah, then you shavada. Well, now this is a very good question. Let me address the rabbi's question. This is a very, very important question. If a person is not well and he's dating, he doesn't tell. I have this question the rabbi gets asked all the time. I get asked all the time. He's not well. The person, sometimes it's a major illness, sometimes it's nothing. But the question is, if a person I've had this more than once, got married and didn't tell out this. And after they got married, he found out that he's not well, he takes pills, he suffers from this and that. So the question is, was he over? So let me tell you an interesting Gemara, a very, very famous Gemara. The Gemara says, Masechtes Yevomas. The Gemara asks, what happens if the father is a goy, the mother is a yid, and there was a child? One of them says the child is a mamzer, and the one says, no, the child is not a mamzer. So he came to Rav, and a guy came to Rav and says, my father's a goy, my mother's Jewish, no, you're not a mamzer. So he says, do me a favor, give me your daughter. So Rav says, even if you'll be as big as Yeshua Benin, I don't know, I'm not giving you my daughter. So Rabbi says to his Rebbe, Rabbi was a Talmud Chacham, if you're not going to give him his daughter, who's going to give him his daughter? So he tells him, I have a good eitzah for you. What is my good eitzah? Go to another city. No one knows that your father is a goy. And they get shot and get married. Amazing Gemara. I mean, he's telling him, go to another city. Here, there was no Google. You couldn't Google the name. You live in Syria. Now you're going to Nardua. No one knows what's going on. And so the Chasam Sofer, the Gemara asks interesting questions. The Chasam Sofer asks that, there's a shit in the Gemara, if the father was a goy, there's one opinion that the child cannot marry the kohen. Well, the next generation, talking about the next generation. So, Sofer doesn't, I don't know exactly why, but you see from the Gemara, you don't have to say it, because you know why? When making a shidduch, there's no enua. Enua means to cheat. You know what enua means? You're not allowed to cheat someone. I'm selling you an object. You're not allowed to overprice, underprice.
There's no cheating.
No, there's no cheating. It's not a sale. So there's another Gemara. The Gemara says there was a guy who was limping, and a lady was limping, and her husband never. No, Gidmis is not limping. Gidmis is missing an arm. Husband never realized. But everyone asked on the place, how did she get married to him? She didn't tell him the truth. Just you see from the Gemara that there's no. The Marsham has an even more interesting shala. Just I was asked once also. That's why I know I was looking around. A 16-year-old girl was mezana. She had a child. They gave her up for adoption. Now she straightened up her life. And she's getting married. Does she have to tell the chassan, I am not a psula, a baby? You know what the Masham says? No, you don't have to say. And the ksuba, he has a whole eitzah, what the rabbi should do for the ksuba. Famous, a whole
What do you say for the ksuba?
He says he should make it Tanai Bezdin. The Rav who Mismasad the ksuba should make it Tanai Bezdin. I don't remember the detail how it has a way.
What if she has a firstborn son?
I don't know. I'm just telling you.
The rabbi would know. He would figure out.
He'll figure out a way how to do it.
The rabbi has to know. The husband doesn't have to know.
Yeah.
So, over there, I understand, but all that, the Hilchos Chaim says, but she could be a perfect wife.
Yeah.
That's just, if I would know, it will annoy me. If I don't know, it doesn't annoy me. You know what I mean? That's how we humans are that way. There's nothing wrong that she had a child. But if you find out, it annoys you. It's not reality, there's not something wrong with her.
Well, it's going to affect her psychologically. It's going to affect her.
We I don't know. That's we live in California. Everything is psychobabbled. I don't know. I see people who went through a tough time, wonderful wives, and I see. I don't know. I don't think that. I don't know. But let me just finish. I want to say. But what happens if it's some illness that he cannot be a wife or a husband? Let's say she can't have many children. She has an illness. A lady once told me she has an illness. I hope I'll have at least 2 children. That you have to say. He wants to have a lot of children. Many people want to have a big family. You can't. Then it's you You are not letting him become the mitzvah. He wants to have a lot of children. So it's very interesting. The frum world, if you date, they call up. In the more modern world, I had a guy, the modern Orthodox, they became much frummer, and I had to live in my community, and I was a yeshivish guy. And he has a serious illness. I asked her, Yuta, we were dating, we fell in love. She says, once we fall in love, I don't care. That's it. But the frum world, it works differently. We don't let you guys fall in love, the children. Let me find out first. But any illness that a person asks you if she cannot be a wife, cannot be a husband, that is, you have to say, that is an illness that they cannot be to do a job. Someone showed me an article a long time ago. My wife showed me. She once read an article, I don't know, she reads the Mishpacha magazine, so I imagine one of those magazines, that Dr. Tversky was asked this question, if there's depression in the family, you have to say, and he said you shouldn't say. And he's talking about real depression, not just, he talked about, I forgot how it's called, bipolar, and all different types of...
Clinical depression, yeah.
What?
Clinical depression.
Some of the serious, not the... And he says, you don't have to say, every family has it. And he writes that someone called him up, for him, called Dr. Tversky, asking, about a shidduch, if there's mental depression, and he didn't realize, he says, this guy, that I'm treating his own nephew, that his own family there's a depression. And I mean, something like that. I don't remember the details. The point is,
The answer is every family has.
that's what he claims. That's what he tried to say in the article. But it doesn't make a difference. A person has a right to know. I don't know if he's in Halacha. I don't think he was saying Halacha. A person wants, look, I have a right to know. You know what I mean? But if you didn't say the truth, I'm not sure you did the worst thing neither. You know what I'm saying? It's not... See, this is why Lashon Hara is so difficult. Sometimes you have a mitzvah to say, and sometimes, let's say someone asked me, there's a store who doesn't sell good quality. I said, what does the Havaman? You're not allowed to tell your friends. What happens if you have a store, a grocery store, sells sour milk? You're doing a mitzvah to send an email to all your friends. Don't buy milk there. The guy's selling sour milk. I mean, it's his problem, not your problem. People get a little bit confused about, that's clear. The guy sells not good thing. You're allowed to tell your friends, don't buy it. I bought it. It was a terrible thing. Someone asked me that it's one of the lists that you could write in. You use the doctor. It's called Angie list, I think, something like that.
Yelp.
Yelp is the one that everybody...
Yelp. So the guy's a doctor. He's I remember what type of doctor. And he had a horrible experience. And I know other Jewish people use them. So I said, I think you should speak to someone in his profession and make sure that he was doing something wrong. Just because you think it's wrong. But if you establish, you will go to someone, Taka, this is not how you treat this. This was just totally, you're allowed to say. People have to know that. Don't use him. He's not a good doctor.
You're allowed to say, or you have to say?
You have to say. No, the question is, he asked me, can I write it in this list, probably Yelp, whatever he said. So I said yes, but I just make sure that you're not, people distort.
But
see
it
us.
sounds like you're making a differentiation between something like, the receptionist was rude, and I had to wait a long time for everything, versus a guy who gave me a misdiagnosis or something like that.
Something wrong too.
Right. Like something that's medical malpractice,
Right,
something like that.
right.
It sounds like
And that's something that happened by mistake. Mistakes happen. Talking about it, the way he described to me, I don't want to go into details because I don't know all the things, but what he described to me, he was giving a treatment, that's not what you do for this, and he asked, and I says, you make sure, if it's true, he doesn't know what he's talking about. I'm not a doctor to know all these details. But the simple marshal is, a guy sells himself in the neighborhood as a handyman. He's a lousy handyman. Now, some people, rather, he charges cheap, will take a lousy handyman. In Yiddish they say, they're very powerful saying in Yiddish they say, a poor person buys twice. You ever heard that expression? He buys, and it's not good, and then he has to buy a second time, the good one. How do you say in Yiddish? There's a But sometimes people are willing to take a cheap, But if a guy calls you up, listen, I want to use this guy as a, handyman. Does he do a good job? You have to tell him the truth. Yes.
If it's not something factual, as in bad customer service, somebody's rude to you, are you allowed to use?
Well, most people, it depends.
Even though he's rude, it's worth it because he does a great job.
Yeah. If a guy calls you up, it's a good motion. If I want to use this doctor, does he make patients wait? You can tell him the truth. I waited an hour. Very blunt. Just say, I waited an hour. There are doctors who couldn't care less to make you wait. Unfortunately, my wife is not well, and one of the doctors she uses, I gave the nurse over the head. Tell me to come an hour late. Every time we come, it's an hour waiting.
So they have to actually publicize it and tell people?
Well, it depends what. Depends what the Metzias is. If he's not a good doctor, he sells sour milk, he's not whatever, I don't have other Misholim, then you have to say. I mean, that's the...
What about on the opposite? If someone does a really good job,
You should...
is the person required to tell other people?
Well, not required. It doesn't say, it's a nice thing.
Only required if it's bad.
What if the guy did tshuva? How do you know he's not reformed himself? Now you're smearing him, and he may have hurt himself with it.
Unless he had done tshuva, he's still not good.
But how do you know?
I once said over at Shuvas Harosh, a frightening Shuvas Harosh, which till today's day, I looked it up twice because it just doesn't make sense. The Rosh asked this question by a Musar. How can you, a Musar, you're allowed to kill. You know that. A Musar is, how you say Musar? Former, the good old days when people literally put into danger. So you're allowed to kill him. So the Rosh says, maybe he did tshuva.
Maybe what?
He did tshuva. So he brings a frightening Gemara in Masechtas Gittin. Gemara relates a story. There was a guy who came to Rav Hina, and he was sold to the, how do you say in English, people eat humans? Cannibals. He was sold to the cannibals. He was sold, and he asked them to please redeem him. So he was going to redeem him. Someone came to say, Rebbe, he eats nevelas, he eats non-kosher. So he says, maybe it's leti oven. Tova means that it's cheaper. Ralph's meat is cheaper than. No, I saw him eat lahachas, the same price. So Rav says, what can I do? I cannot redeem you. They said, hey, the guy knew now, if they don't redeem him, he is supper. Tonight he's supper. So why wouldn't he do tshuva? Yeah, but the Gemara says he knew if the Reb said, I cannot redeem you because you ate lahachas treif. So the Rosh says, I imagine this guy who's going to do tshuva. People don't change so fast, there's a famous medrash. The medrash says that Cain and Hevel, when they were fighting, do you know who was stronger? Hevel is stronger than Cain. So the medrash says, Cain went to beat up Hevel. Hevel grabbed over him and threw him to the floor, and then it was about. Cain begged, no, I'm going to make shalom with you, everything be good. And okay, got up, and then he killed him. So the medrash from an evil person, no good could come out. People don't change. Guys, verschleppte. It's going to happen again.
The guy used to be able to, no need to say it.
Yeah. What's that? Lachas, I did tshuva. That's a really frightening Gemara. Okay. Let's just move on. He says,
The Russians bringing that in relation to what?
from a Musa, you're allowed to kill a Musa. The Shoyel asked, the tshuva, maybe he did tshuva, we're killing some. See, the din is like this. In din Bezdin, we say you should do tshuva. If a guy, it was Machal Yontav, Shabbos, I mean. Guy, over the Vodah Zorah. A guy who was a machshefa. So he stole him. Bezdin says, do tshuva. That doesn't help tshuva. You know what I mean? Here, if this Musa did tshuva, really, we're not allowed to kill him. We're only killing him because we got to stop him to do damage for our people. So the Shoyl asked, why don't you... See, the rule in life is people don't change fast. That's, my beard is a little wider. We don't change so fast. It takes a lot of hard work to change. People only change when something terrible, emotional of people. Otherwise, unless he's a big Yerushalayim, works on himself hard, that's... Okay, let's move on. If a person says very good things, the son of the people he hates. You know, he says this guy is a great guy in front of the people he hates. You know, you praise him in front of everyone. You praise him in front of everyone, there's going to be someone who dislikes him. He's going to talk about his genu. That's called avak lushan hara. You're causing people to speak lushan hara. You know, people have this. You praise a guy, and you praise a guy, and you know that's the nature of people. He's not such a tzaddik. You make him into. He's not such a great guy. So you praise him too much. Not too much. So you don't praise too much. You know, I've learned, I said it I think last week or 2 weeks ago, someone showed me this saying, it's from a shiksa, but it works gewaldig. Instead of telling my guests don't speak Lushan Hara, I tell them a saying from Eleanor Roosevelt. And she says, great minds talk about ideas. Average minds talk about events, and small minds talk about people. It's such a profound saying. I used to say, come on, let's not talk Lushan Hara, I would clap. You know, I sound like from a guy over here, you know what I mean? Like this. Yeah, I didn't say Lushan Hara, I just said, that's very, very true. He says, Orach ein reshul shabach es balabayis. And Orach is not allowed to... Oh, I skipped something, right? The last two lines of Yid Beis. The last two lines of Yid Beis. He says it in a tricky way. Let me tell you where the makar of the Shulchan Harav is. The makar is the Yerushalma. The Yerushalma says that, you know, they were drafted by the governor to do work. You know, so they forgot, the guy who forgot to round up one of the friends. They were, how's it called, drafted. You know, every few weeks they have to go help to clean the roads, whatever. I don't remember what the Yerushalma says. So they forgot to call this guy, the goy. So they were sitting down, they were eating, so the guy says, you were eating, he mentioned the name of a food that the guy has a similar name. Oi, the goy chapt, they didn't call him. So the Yerushalma says, that's Lushan Hara b'derech remuis. Understand? Again, let's say, the way it seems from the Yerushalma, there was a governor, whatever the guy in charge, a police officer who rounded up all these neighbors that have to clean the streets once a month. So let's say we have 5 of them. They forgot to round one of them up. So as they were going, guy asked the other friend, what are we going to eat today for lunch? So he says a name of a food that they had similar name of him. We're going to eat Frank's. And the guy's name is Frank. So, oi, the goy chapt, we forgot to call Frank. So the Yerushalma says, this is what the Rabbi brings down, that's called derech remuis. The guy forgot to call him. So, you know, he got off the hook. And that's called Lushan Hara too.
It's called monetary damage. It's not the...
Yeah, but it's called Lushan Hara. Because the government had a right to call him. That was a draft to clean, whatever. It was something that... but he forgot to call him. And you, with Derech Hermus, caused them to be...
You're talking about the Jewish authority?
I think it was secular. Because if it's a Jewish town, he has to do his job. That's not Lushan Hara. He has to do a job. Let's say we have turns to clean the streets, and then it's not fair that he's getting away with it. Talking about they were drafted. This was like a draft. Ramuz is not false. Ramuz is deceiving. Who knows? Sneaky. Ramuz in a sneaky way. Ramai is a deceitful way. He acts like is. That's like cheating, right? Okay, let's then us Orach eine l'shabech is balabayis. Orach is not allowed to Shebeich the Balabayis, Shitoiv Hayin. I was invited by someone, to other people, you know. This guy is great to hang out. See, let me tell you, there are two types. In my neighborhood, we have a few people. It's a privilege for them to be machnas orach. However, my chavrusa, I learn with him daf yomi every day. He built a house, so he added another 4 rooms, just that it should be achnus zarchim. Outside of his house, he wanted to be mekayim. There's a few people that way. So that's a chinuch. But, you know, certain people, if you ask me, you need to stay someplace, I'll give you a place. And the guy says, you know, this guy is a gewaldige place to stay. And you're not going to say, because then people can take advantage. So this is a very important halacha. Because when I was young, I didn't understand this well. Say no. You can't say no, it's your problem. Seems like if other people don't know how to say no, and you cause them, they should be invited, and then you could say also, you gotta be invited, but you don't get mitzvah. But the guy doesn't want, he doesn't have nerve in the fire. That's called Lashon Hara. That's you're not allowed to do. See, even though the guy's a weak guy, my own shalom bayis, my wife has a hard time saying no. I have, unfortunately, no problem saying no. I don't know why. You know, sometimes people call and wife says they're invited. Imagine, even my wife was beginning not to be well. She had a hard time to say no. But upon him, that we see from the Rav. This is a Gemara that, you know, since a person has a hard time saying no, and you're telling them, and they get invited and not willingly take them in, that's called Lashon Hara. Yes.
Practical situation happens all the time in my family. Somebody calls and says, "It's a wedding. We have guests from out of town. You have a big house. Can eat family stay or whatever stay in your house for the wedding?" And it turns out that during that particular time, we've got a full house. We just happen to have a full house. Are we allowed? From what I hear you saying, if I know that there's somebody else who has a big house, I shouldn't say that person, why didn't I try them? I should call that person and say,
You just say, I never say anything. I say, I cannot do it.
well, suppose you want to be helpful. I mean,
Yeah, I want to be helpful. You shouldn't say, you should, right, you should,
can you call the other
right, you should say, you call first the other person.
and say, is it okay to...
See, in our neighborhood, people have back houses a lot, and they gladly give it out. You know, people get chila build a back house to be able to help people.
Invade the privacy.
You know, it doesn't invade the privacy. But there are people who just don't like, you know. My wife is not well now. I don't like it, I guess. She doesn't, you know, she's not well, and then she pushes herself because she feels so bad. But you don't have to have an excuse not well. Just sometimes you're not in the mood to have guests. You know, just that's what it is. Let me skip because this is one topic. The last. I want to show you a frightening chof that's connected. Middle goes of a separate topic. I want you to turn the page. Turn the page in chof. I want to show you a frightening thing.
Rabbi, can you extend your gimel to anything that could...
Anything that your friend is not going to know how to say no.
Okay.
And you know that, you know, you're taking advantage of the situation. You know, there are people don't know how to say no.
So for example, when shluchim come around and they ask for money, they might say, do you know anybody that I can go collect from?
Well, that's tzedukah is a mitzvah. No. We're not talking about. We're talking about. But this is to stay by you. They could rent. They could go find another place. They could rent a place. No, tzedukah is adrabah. You're supposed to go with them and convince people to give tzedukah. Goydel ha'ashi yosem and oisa. You know what that means? There's a mitzvah to what do you say? All fundraiser is with that. But that is okay if the guy could give tzedukah. But it looks like you're having a person in the house very often. It's too much. You can't do it. You know, it takes away privacy. There are people who cannot tolerate. I watched this.
For example, by me, I'm on a list of a bunch of other offices in downtown, and I've limited it to only come on Thursday. But when it comes to Thursday, every 15 minutes, half an hour, there's a shluchim that come. They got my name from somebody else. Now, what I'm saying, that's a tircha to me. If I know that somebody was to do that to me, I would probably be bothered by it.
Well, no.
I know.
Yeah, but I'm sorry. You're doing a great thing. I'm very sorry. But you can give, obviously you can give, otherwise you wouldn't have them come to you.
So if it's not a mitzvah.
If that mitzvah is tzedukah, but inviting people is not money. Is a lot of it's some people, the children are too much, and then people invade the privacy, and it's not always. When my wife is not well. I see it's very hard to have guests now. You know, we never used to have a problem. The people, you know, when you're young, it's much easier. Okay, Kol mi sheikes dam. This is a very interesting Gemara. The Rav is quoting a Gemara. When you leach blood or you donate blood, Kol sheikes dam einoi b'mala havrois nafshoi. Then you're going to want to hear this. And it doesn't have what to eat. You hear what I say? After you give blood, the times of the Gemara you have to eat. You have to eat meat or fish. The Gemara says, Chum gave him advice. Listen to this. Sheyitul beyude dinera. Take a spoil. You know, those days a coin was, I say ugewebt. Rubbed out. You know, the coin was rubbed. It lost its value. Those days wasn't like a quarter. We have a quarter. Who cares if the quarter's rubbed, not rubbed? Those days, if a quarter, for $50 was rubbed out, you couldn't get 50 cents for it. It was 45 cents. So get yourself a bad dinner. And we used to go to buy wine. You would give you a little small cup of wine. Now listen, I want to buy you wine. Let me taste it. I want to taste your wine. If it's a good wine, so listen, I only have this coin. The guy's not going to want to take the coin. You got a free shot. How you say in Chabad, a free shot. And you go around till you make a revius. That's what the Gemara says. Yeah, what the Gemara is telling you to do. Get samples.
With the forgery.
With the cheshbon, you hear this? That I'm not going to buy. People.
They're not going to sell.
Yeah, that's the Elchonon status. The Rav doesn't explain it. People have asked, a few people asked me over here. You're the one who also asked me, if you remember. You asked me, can you go out to a store to check something out and then buy it online? Remember you asked me this? You're the one who asked me this question. If you go, can I go? I forgot what you were telling me. An item. Look, you want to see the item? Now I saw the item. This store charges because you got a store. You go online, you get it a lot cheaper.
Some people make a living doing that.
Doing what?
Selling online.
Well, people sell online all the time. But
this is always an issue. Brick and mortar stores, they have to charge sales tax.
that's what I'm saying.
Online, you buy
Right.
it from out of state.
It's not only that. Young people explain to me it's cheaper because it comes from places where the storage they have it cheap. It comes from
The main savings was always sales tax.
sales tax. No.
Okay, so the question is.
You're allowed to do it. The Rav says I'm going to dig a chiddush here, but he only says only this case. A guy needs wine, he doesn't have wine to drink, and he just leached blood, so he should make this trick. So let's finish his saying. Go to another storekeeper. Because the Chazal said, if you gave blood, you must drink a revius wine. Wine. Health. You have to wine. Those days, if you gave blood, you have to drink wine. He says, it gives you grape juice. They give you orange juice here. Someone told me,
You only give a pint. It's not like they took out a lot more blood.
I don't think they took a pint. I think they took less.
They're the leeches.
Not the leech. Now they take a pint. He said, so the Rav, it's a Gemara. This is a Gemara Masechta Shabbos. So he doesn't bring down the Yavitz, the Elchonon explained the Gemara. So how could you do such a thing? I mean, a ganef. If I would say such a thing, but I'm not quoting Gemara, ganef. But the Yavitz says, the reason the Gemara says you're allowed to do it, the Rav adds only a choili. That doesn't say in the Gemara. That's what I'm saying? The Megavrom says it. But the Gemara doesn't say anything. So the what's his name? The reason is because the guy could take the coin. He's just lazy. I showed him $50. It's a terrible coin. Let him give me 55 cents. It's just a big tercha. I'm going to take you $50. But the Yavit says, if you mamish clearly says, it's no good the wine, you're going to lie to him, then you don't have to do. He says, the Yavit says, why doesn't the Gemara say better? Taste the wine. Nah, it's not good schayda. Why does the Gemara say you have to give a half a coin and the guy rejected coin? If you're allowed to do a shtick, just go there and taste the wine. No, that's a lie. The wine is good wine and it tastes as good wine. You have to. I gave him an opportunity to get paid. He doesn't want, then that's but you're only allowed to.
That's not lying? The one is not lying yet?
What? Yeah, but you could get the storekeeper could. So says I'm allowed. Before we said I cannot tell people what a good person he is because. He's going to say yes at the end. The end is, you call the guy, can I stay with you for your Shabbos? Making a chasana, and the guy doesn't know how to say no. But he's going to say yes. But I didn't, and that's called doing wrong. So obviously, the mukim choyle, you're allowed to. See, what bothers me, there's another Shulchan Harav and Hilchos Masa Umatan. It's based on another Gemara b'Mitzia. If your guy offers you food, and you know it's not full-heartedly, you shouldn't eat it. Based on the Gemara over there when he spread the basket, the Gemara b'Mitzia. So if let's say the Gemara has a story that the Oris, what's his name, two Amarim came and they're waiting for another Moed to come. And the Oris served them food. So he got annoyed at him. Why didn't you give him even better food? One of them didn't want to eat. One ate. He says he didn't want to eat, says the Mashu. Why? Because he wasn't sure he meant it wholeheartedly. But he said, why didn't you give him better? I'm not sure if he meant it wholeheartedly. So the Rav brings down that halacha that if someone gives you something, doesn't mean wholeheartedly, you shouldn't take it. Also, that's like a milsa de chassidus. Here he's saying a big chiddush, that if you are a mitzvah schoili, Chazal allowed you to make such a trick. That's the story. The story is, those days they believed it's extremely important to leach blood. And when you leach blood, you have to have a good reis wine. And the guy has no money, has no reis wine. So he gives them a good eitzah. Get yourself a seller, a coin that's not rubbed off. Guy's not going to bother with it. The heck with you.
So is it the same thing if he didn't just give blood, if he's just thirsty?
No, he's not allowed to. He says only if you mix a schoili. He says only the mixes choy. Mixes choy means there's some illness. Okay, this heter applies when someone is not well.
And does that also apply for staying at someone's house?
No, you see, not. You're not a choyli. Go find someone place. See,
Before wasn't this
If someone's just like poor, they're hungry.
He didn't just give blood in the other situation.
I understand what you just said, though.
So suggesting to go to someone else's house.
Yeah, in that you shouldn't, because the guy does not know how to say no, and it's not a mixes choyli. Who's sick? If the guy forget, I shouldn't tell him to go to that house if he does not know how to say no. Certain people don't know how to say no, because then he's going to take him in, but not willingly. Here's also giving you not willingly, but here, but mukim choyli, you're allowed to do it.
Right, but I'm saying, so the same situation,
If he's a sick person, you're right. Then theoretically, you'll be right. Yes.
Oh, wait, in the purchasing online, the person going into the store to check out the item, if the person's going there, maybe he's going to get a better deal in the store, possibly.
Yeah, I told you that. If it's possible that he might buy it sometime, then it's not a problem. But someone asked me over here clearly, it's known, people do it nowadays. I forgot, one of the stores, what is it called, Best Buy, someone told me people go, sure. You goes in and it doesn't plan to buy it, you just want to see the camera, and now they showed it to him, goodbye, I go on the internet and I buy that camera. That's what someone asked me over here.
But they know that you're doing that.
But the reality is that if the price isn't too big of a difference, you might go to the store just because it's convenient, you got it,
No, but let's say someone asked me over here, I know I'm not going to buy it by good guys. What is it called, Best Buys? Best Buys. I'm not going to buy the Best Buys. I just want to see the camera there. I want to see the computer there. And I'll go home and click on the computer and get it much cheaper.
Suppose you don't bother the salesman, just walk down the aisle and pick it up.
So that's okay. The question is about taking time from the salesman. Oh, you take time from the salesman. The guy is standing with you 20 minutes describing.
The issue is that it's costing the money.
Of course, but I think he's there to entertain you.
I'm just trying to figure out what the
Yeah, the issur is it costs some money. It cost him 20 minutes. He didn't pay.
At that time, you could have looked at it like a product.
Yeah, it could have helped. It's taking the guy away. Imagine you call the guy out. Let's have a cigarette. Let's waste 20 minutes.
Yeah, but theoretically speaking, if you don't go there to buy it, but there happens to be a sale where it's really cheap, you're going to buy it.
Yeah, but let's say you know. I all agree that if you might buy it there because you see it, you like the service. That's not the question. He said, someone asked me once, it's clear I'm not going to buy it there.
They don't know what the price is. They just put up a new sale.
No, but Tauber saying in a case where you know the prices.
People do that. The young people generation don't even go to stores. A guy, my chavus, is a young guy. He doesn't walk into a store. All the Pampers, he has small. Everything comes already online. He says much cheaper.
No, it doesn't matter if you tell the guy, I'm not planning to buy it here. I just
Oh, you tell him, then it's not a problem. Mister, I'm not buying here. Do you want to show me? That's not a problem. That's not the problem. You know, if.
When I go into a store, even if I'm going to check a price or going for whatever, sometimes I see something along the way, and I buy that. I'm saying that there's always a chance that if you're going into
But he's saying it's called the leader's item, but there's a name for it in English. Lost leader. They're saying that sometimes they want you to come in anyways, and they don't mind you waste the guy's time because you might buy other things. Right. Then you're right. If that is the case, see, I don't know how these things work, but if that's not, I thought this was only about supermarket. But if you say it happens by good guys or the Best Buys, whatever, it's okay. Then the same thing. Then the same idea.
So there's no issue with using it as a showroom if you're not using anybody's time?
Yeah, there's nothing wrong. The ikar is taking a person's time from his work. But he's saying an important thing, that sometimes the stores don't even mind because they hope that you might still buy. They want to get you into the store. I mean, I remember once there was a Tauber where it was clear that the stores were losing money. But they wanted it, they were selling lower than the wholesale. But this was an incredible item people were coming to buy. They want people to come into the store. Look, they pay advertisements. Who knows how much money? This is another advertisement. They were losing money, but so what? But they want you to come into the store. All right. Let's go back to over here, to Zayin. The Yidalet. It says, Kaloi medu chavei hi bal yoimer, in Allah say it over, at sheyoimer leleich emoir. If someone tells something for his friend, you're not allowed, even though he didn't tell you not to say, you're not allowed to say it over. The Rambam passing this. If I tell you something, even though I didn't tell you, I'm saying in confidential, don't tell anyone. You're not allowed to say it. People, this is one thing people are not careful. You know.
Tell me that person is a
No, that's a different story. The guy you have to. Well, that he has no right. Someone, Mamish, came to me with such a story. Someone told me, confided on him about someone, and then he told them, don't you dare tell anyone. I said, he has no right.
And if I sign that?
Signing doesn't help, unless he swore. I'm trying to remember what the case was. It was Mamish Negeya for lots of people but he confided in him. He didn't want you should say. I says, yeah, tell him that once you told it to me, you also, I said, now I'm obligated to speak up. I have to remind myself of the case. You understand what happened? The guy tells you something. He knows about this guy. Let's say, you said it. He's a ganav shebeganovim. And it's not just a rumor, because you can't be Kabbalah Shnara. Let's say. Hey, what?
I signed a legal document, but he printed out. First I signed it, then I'll tell you.
That's good.
I don't want to know. He says, no, you have to know. First sign it.
Apitoida, which means nothing. You don't have to lose money. If he could sue you, not mechuyev to lose money on that. Not worse than a shuvas aveda. You know, if I'm going to lose a lot of money, but let's say you're not going to lose money just because I signed it. If it's something that's negay for many people to know, I'm mechuyev to say. Let's say you find out, I don't know, the guy sells sour milk, or the guy is a pervert. Let's say he doesn't want anyone to find out he's the one, he did it to him. Once you told it to me, I think that's what it was about molestation, something. I don't remember the detail. The guy came to me and promised, please don't tell anyone. And I says, Once the word came out of his mouth, he's not, if it's negay for others, he's not the balbos of this information. You understand what I'm saying? Once that information was said, let's take a motion. He says, Reuven ben Yankov is a molester, pedophile. He doesn't want anyone to know about it. He made him sign not to tell anyone. It doesn't make a difference. Once you know the information, I have to save the other people's lives. I have no. But we're talking about not talking to Hashem. I'm telling you something. You're not allowed unless guy told you allowed to say it over. It's a very interesting halacha. Then he says, you're not allowed to count klal yisur b'isai. This is very interesting. I don't know if you know in Eretz Yisrael there was a big fight about the census when they make census. I don't know what the fight is all about.
How can it be permissible?
But we don't count the heads. If you look what the Rav says, Usim Yisrael fele ein mischaverak lahate goyr al ezeschem, fele dvar mitzvah ele mitzim etz boiseyem, imoynem etz buas. So they have to know how many people there is. For the cities, to know what to build and knowing how the city is growing and
Count the papers.
Yeah, so that's what they do. They count the papers. I don't know why in Eretz Yisrael. I know there was a big controversy about the census. Maybe they held it was no tzorech. I don't know why it's no tzorech.
When you count the papers, it's not a problem.
Well, but it has to be usher dvar mitzvah, the counting. I'm not sure. There was a whole big tumult about this counting. Then comes a very interessant Zach, Rabbi say. Yuva b'mishpat al kol ne'elam, yisof kehelis, rabbis v'la hoidi kinem b'fnei chaveiroi. If you kill a louse in front of your friend, you're going to give them the cheshbon. You heard Rabbi say. If you make something disgusting in front of your friend, you're also going to give them a cheshbon. You're not allowed to cause someone emotional discomfort.
How far does that extend?
You killed a louse in front of another person. What do you say? Oh, I don't know why he doesn't bring another Gemara. Gemara says if you spit, and someone might see the spit and be disgusting, is also you're not allowed to do that. Not of anything that someone
We do that.
does make it right.
Cover, but
Yeah, that's normal. I'm talking about people sometimes they go and they shoot. That's disgusting. Okay, let's learn another piece. That's fine. This is very, very frightening, Rabbi Sai. Maybe I shouldn't teach it. Asach siches chilin. Siches chilin means nonsense. He siches ha'ilulis v'kalas rosh. Oive be'eser. Shnei medibartu bam medvurim v'cherim. That's why I introduced when my children were young. So what do you do with your children sitting at the Shabbos table? What are you going to talk? So I had this mahalach all the time. Everyone has to thank Hashem. Otherwise, you're not connected to your children. Or we would talk about science, something interesting in science. But remember, that worked the best. All my aitzes to get the children involved. And I telling you, they loved it because you found out everything what went on about the other person's life. No, I think about this, and they got a good test, and just to find out things about my daughters I never knew whatsoever. I wouldn't have known of them, because you sit at a Shabbos table. What are your children going to do?
Science is not successful.
No. You say about the godless of Hashem. You talk about the things that is amazing. That's not the Sichas Chol means something that is nothing but kalas rosh. Dvorim shema b'kach. How do you say in English dvorim shema b'kach? Something irrelevant. Just not talk about the basketball game or the what is it called, the football game. That's sichas hayilodim. Children aren't interested. What do you say? Yeah, but the boys didn't. Sie bekalas über schnell Bartebam, weil ich wurden machedem, auf im Quei item der Teure Yasem schauen, wurden schön mit Zeurich. Aber leib sich es haylo dois, bekalas rosh, yachs lemida kvis eis, eine la hachme, shim shchol yom der geres. Means every second you're obligated to learn. Kvis item only that you should make sure you should learn every day, but every free minute you have free time, you have to learn. This is very frightening. So let's just finish. Zeriza magdim lemitzvahs, and zuchlak yoysim mod shachar. You're not mechuyev to start before the mod shachar. Zeriza magdim mitzvahs, but not, you have to do in the morning. You don't have to do before the daybreak. But once the daybreak, that's the reason.
Meaning it's a mitzvah to do it, or it's
Any mitzvah to do, you're not obligated to do it in the middle of the night. Let's say the next.
It's a mitzvah to do it.
like not speaking garbage stuff.
No, it's not daily.
Doesn't appear.
Yeah, that's the way. Are you talking about before? That's the way. The Bartabam. It's Bittel Toida and it's a Bartabam.
Doesn't appear.
Yeah, it is. That's why I said maybe I shouldn't learn it.
Too late.
Then Yidches is a very interesting halacha. There's a lot of loy sachnifi. You know what I'm saying? You're not out of chamfa. You're not out of flatter. So if a guy is a Rasha, and I had a guy comes to me. I'm going to Uman, standing there with his shiksa wife, Mamish. And I was told that he's living with the shiksa. And I meet him at a wedding. I'm going to Uman a month from this last year. Can you please pray for me? And I didn't know what to say. I wanted to tell him, get rid of your shiksa and I'll pray for you. And I was debating. There were so many people standing around. I was at a wedding. Till today, I just ignored him. Till today's day, I should have told him, get in front of a shiksa. I told him in Yiddish. He knows Yiddish. Get rid of the shiksa. She was a Chinese girl. Get rid of the shiksa. And someone else told me he's trying to beguile her, but he was living with her in one house. They play chess every night. What do you think they're doing? So, if a guy's coming to me to say that, he was a frum guy. He's not a guy who's a tinnik shenishba. If I don't tell him anything, it's like he's coming to the Rabbi, introduces her to me. That was the chutzpah too. Let me introduce you. This is my friend, he tells me. So, what?
Pray for divorce.
Pray for divorce, yeah. He asked me, has he had a problem with his back? That Hanifa is very frightening. If a guy comes to you, and obviously he wanted to see my reaction. Afterwards, why did he introduce it to me? People know you don't introduce woman to me. But obvious to me was afterwards clear he wanted to see my reaction. You're not allowed to be machna of him. Flatter.
You should have protested.
Yeah.
By Rabbi Tauber, not protesting is already flagged.
Yeah, but because if a guy introduces his friend, he didn't want to say girlfriend. He said, "This is my friend." What is he trying to say?
The truth is, he wanted to hear most of it, in a positive way. He needed a shake.
I did tell him afterwards when we were alone, that I met him. I made sure to meet him. What's going on? No, she's becoming gigi, and nothing helped. I saw them. It's not a. But when a person says to you, if a very wealthy person, I had the guy once came to me, and the guy who made the video for the what's his name, for Breslov. I don't know if you ever saw it. So the video made, and the guy is a famous movie producer. He's an old man. I forgot the producer. I forgot what's a producer or something like that. People told me he's famous. Right. What's his name again? Yeah, something Metsky. So, and he tells me, he speaks to me, and he wasn't ashamed to tell me, my wife is a shiksa. He tells me that. So I remember, I didn't want to do the interview. So I says to him, so why are you interested in something like that? So I asked him why. But he was an old man. Yeah. What's the name? Palm. But anyways, it was like he was very guilty. He felt very, very guilty. And he was an old man. His wife is 50 years with him already. It wasn't like he was going to throw it out now.
The confession by the
Yeah, he felt bad. He had to say it. But I told him, I asked him, do you have?
This is the movie you're in. Yippee.
Yes, but when he came to me in my office, and he said it. He came with someone, with Meshudas, another guy, but the guy didn't know. He knew Yiddish. He was speaking to me Yiddish. He was showing off that he knows some Yiddish still. I told him, you have a wife. I told him, you have a wife of shiksa. I didn't buy. So he made a joke out of it. He's an 80-year-old man. I was going to change now. But that's called Hanifa. If you don't speak up, he wants you to see your reaction. You know what I mean?
For a Jew?
What?
This is only for a Jew?
Only for a Jew.
What about complimenting non-Jews?
You're not allowed to praise a non-Jew.
Praising
That's Elchonon. It's a separate law. That's nothing to do with this. We're talking about, they asked me many years ago, one of the local yeshivas wanted to honor a famous doctor, wanted to give money for the yeshiva. And he had a wife, a shiksa. So they made such a tumult. I said, he's a tinnik shenishba. It's not like he grew up as a yeshiva. He grew up, I don't know why they made such a tumult, but one of the Rabbi made a tumult. I said, he's a tinnik shenishba. Like, it's not like he grew up from it and he wants to give a lot of money to the school. I had no problem.
What does it mean praise a non-Jew? I mean, there's a non-Jew who teaches over at Keirim and not on the English.
Well, you're praising him for good things.
If I'm praising for a reason, you're allowed to. But I cannot say this guy is a great pitcher. This guy knows how to make a touchdown. What is a goal?
Only in the moment when he does something good.
Yeah, you're allowed to tell people, yes, he's a great teacher, great principal. I have a great shiksa. If you need her, use her. My wife has a shiksa. She has to find days. She cleans well, does a good job.
That's where you get in trouble. I have a great shiksa. That's where it starts.
Oh. Do you know why we call it a shiksa? Do you know why in Yiddish it's called a shiksa? People don't know that. Shiksa comes from the word shakas de kashenus lach. So he wanted to make sure, remember, you cannot marry her. That's disgusting. But it's a posting in the Torah. Check it. Okay, we'll stop over here.